Chairman. And I want to thank Ms. Thompson. I was a state lawmaker for 3 years before I came to Congress. I represent the 1st Congressional District of South Carolina, and South Carolina has had its own history, very bad history with Black South Carolinians, Black and Brown and African Americans. I recently took a vote to move statues like Supreme Court Justice Taney, removing his bust out of the Capitol Rotunda because he wrote the Dred Scott opinion, the one that said that Black and Brown and African Americans could not become citizens of the United States of America. I voted to move, someone like Wade Hampton, who encouraged the murder of over 150 Black South Carolinians during his run for governor. And so I appreciate your comments about the 60s. I was not around then, but I've watched and read a lot of the history and seen the videos and seen the moments of violence against Black America. So I applaud your work on that. My understanding is you were elected in 1972 in Texas. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right, and I applaud you for making history, I imagine, in Texas and being a strong voice for Black men and Black women. Coming from South Carolina, we've got voter ID, and I'm assuming Texas is the same way. Do y'all need IDs to buy alcohol when you're purchasing at the store?
Yes, to be sure that you are capable of doing that.
Right. Do you need an ID in Texas to buy cigarettes?
You can't buy them unless you're at least 21.
But do you have to show an ID to buy cigarettes?
You do have to show an ID.
Do you need an ID when you're getting a job and trying to get on payroll in Texas?
Yes.
Do you need an ID to go to the pharmacy and get a prescription in Texas?
It depends on this prescription.
But do you need an ID for some prescriptions
Yes,
in
you do.
Texas?
Yes.
Do you need an ID to get Social Security services in Texas?
You do.
Do you need an ID to rent an apartment in Texas?
Yes.
Do you need an ID if you're going to buy a house and finance it via a mortgage in Texas?
Yes.
Do you need an ID in Texas if you're going to board an aircraft and fly commercial?
Yes.
Did you fly commercial or fly a private jet on the way to DC?
A chartered plane.
Do you have to show an ID when you fly in a private charter jet?
Yes.
I wouldn't know. I've never flown on one. So did you need an ID to get in the building here today?
Yes.
Do you need an ID in Texas to open a bank account?
Yes.
To cash your check if you're working. Do you know, Representative Thompson, what percentage of Blacks in Texas, Black and Brown African Americans are registered to vote?
Oh, a huge percentage.
70%. Do you know what percentage of African Americans, Black and Brown Texans have voted on average or in the last election?
About 64%.
Correct. Do you know how many whites are registered to vote in Texas?
Far more than African Americans.
72%. You have 70% of Blacks in Texas who are registered to vote. You have 72% of whites in Texas who are registered to vote. Do you know the percentage of whites who turned out to vote in recent elections?
I want to say over 50-some%.
65%.
Yeah.
Do you know what percentage of Hispanics are registered to vote in Texas?
No, I do not.
63%. Do you know what percentage of Hispanics voted in the last election?
I think it was over 40%.
53%. Hispanics are not voting in as high a numbers as Blacks and whites in Texas. Do you know the percentage of Democrats that support voter ID?
Would you repeat your question?
Do you know the number or percentage of Democrats who support voter ID in this country?
I do not, but I don't think it's a whole lot.
72%. Do you know the number of Black and Brown and African Americans in this country who support voter ID?
No.
75%. Do you know the number of Hispanics that support voter ID in this country?
No.
81%. Do you know where the state of Texas is ranked with Black voter turnout in this country?
Would Black voters turn out?
Mm-hmm. Do you know where Texas is ranked?
Oh, about 44%.
The latest numbers that I read this morning was that Texas is ranked 10th. Do you know where Texas is ranked? So then top 10 in the country. Do you know where Texas is ranked with women voters?
Oh, way up in the 50s.
in the bottom third of this country. So I would argue that Texas has a more difficult problem with getting women out to vote than Black and brown and African Americans. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. I'd like to go to Congresswoman Robin Kelly.
Well, I'll yield back too, because at the end of the day, us women do go vote. I think we get a little or no access to votes. So you're aware you're violating Texas laws. Let's listen to it, guys. The news is important, just to pay attention to the words.
So
Excellent.
Please be on your best behavior.
I appreciate that, and great to see my colleagues from Texas. Although I wish we were under slightly different circumstances. Obviously, I think that you guys should be in Austin, Texas, performing those duties. Let me ask you a couple quick questions here, and I'm just going to scatter these around. Just give me yes or no answers if you can. Representative Bernal, is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act remaining full in effect?
Excuse me?
Is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act remaining full in effect right now?
Yes.
Right. And are you aware, was it just Section 5 that was overturned in the Shelby County decision 8 years ago? Right. And that the reason that the body, that it was overturned was that this body failed to update the formula and was using 50-year-old data and a 50-year-old formula. Is that yes or no? Is that why it was overturned?
That was among the reasons.
So the Voting Rights Act remains in effect. The 1965 Voting Rights Act remains in effect. That provision, Section 5, is what was overturned because it was 50-year-old data. May I ask another question on this of each witness? Do you believe that Texas should have to submit to the Department of Justice for any changes that it makes in its voting laws or formulas?
Yes.
Ms. Collier, or Representative Collier?
The historical nature of Texas
Just
racism
yes or no, do you think
would
Texas's
support
election
that.
laws should have to submit to the Department of Justice for preclearance?
Not only for that, for maps as well.
And Representative Thompson, do you believe that they should have to submit to the Department of Justice for preclearance?
Yes.
So for the record, the representatives from Texas believe that they should have to defer to Washington, defer to the federal government on what we should do for election laws in the state of Texas. Now, each of the three of you are aware that you are in fact violating Texas law by being here right now instead of being in Texas during the legislative session, and that it would be in order to arrest you were you in the state of Texas to get you back to the state house. We agree that those are the facts. Representative Bernal?
I'm not sure those laws are constitutional.
But is that the law in the state of Texas? We can argue the constitutionality.
I don't think so.
I think the law of the state of Texas is that you're supposed to be in session and that you're supposed to be there carrying out your constitutional duty. Do you support H.R. 1, the federal law that was passed here in the House of Representatives? Representative Bernal?
Yes.
Representative Collier?
Hello, sister.
Hi, Empress.
Blessings. So I meant to tell you, you have that VIP door. All you have to do is like go to that place and like go to that other place. I even forgot. Like I think you should know. You got the key to the caddy, girl. Because you can just open it up, right? Open up a page, and then it'll be right there, and you'll see it. Because I sent you an email with the link, but technically you don't need the link. If you know what I mean. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? So I love to do the news. Breaking news. And there's some news about voting in Texas. They always want to do it big in Texas, but I had someone tell me that a lot of Hispanic and Black voters vote there, and kind of getting some different news. So did you have any thought on these people and what they were saying?
I haven't heard it yet. I only heard a little bit, but then
Okay.
I clicked the link and missed it. So I know
No
you were
worries.
something about Texas or something.
Yeah, be aware you're violating Texas laws about voting. So we're going to just listen.
I believe I will stand with the congressional members who passed it, so I support their.
Representative Thompson, do you support H.R. 1?
I do it. And Ms. Mr. Chair, I'd like to just to say, I'm ready to be arrested. I'm not violating the law, and I'm representing my constituents, and I stand ready.
Representative
Bring the
Thompson,
handcuffs on, and I'm ready to go.
Representative Thompson reclaiming my time. I appreciate that's your view on the matter. I think that makes the case precisely. With respect to HR 1, each of the witnesses, one said that she opposed voter ID, two said some forms of voter ID. I would point out and just want to clarify that HR 1 would in fact say that an individual in the state is eligible to cast a vote in an election for federal office. The state may not impose any additional conditions or requirements on the eligibility of the individual to cast the vote in such election by absentee ballot by mail. In other words, federal prohibition on the use of voter ID with respect to absentee ballot by mail and interfering with the state's rights to ability to use voter ID. I've heard a number of witnesses testify about the lack of examples of the witnesses of fraud. On September 3rd, 2014, at the United States District Court in Corpus Christi, Democrat election expert Buck Wood was asked if there was a voter fraud occurring by mail. His response, and I quote, was yes, very definitely. Do you agree with him, Representative Bernal?
Do I agree that Buck Wood was aware of a case of
Was asked if
fraud?
there was voter fraud occurring by mail. His response, and I quote, was very definitely. Do you agree with him?
I believe that he said that, sure.
Representative Collier, do you agree with him, his assertion?
I cannot confirm or deny. I'm not sure. What
Representative Thompson?
I'm not aware of him saying that.
Okay. In 2007, your colleague, who also happens to be here in D.C., Rafael Anchia, said, and I quote, vote by mail that we know is the greatest source of voter fraud in this state. Do you agree with Representative Anchia? Yes or no? Greatest source of fraud, yes or no? Do you agree with Anchia or no?
I have no reason to, I have nothing to base the fact that the greatest.
Yes,
source of
yes,
voter
yes.
fraud-
Okay, so you're disagreeing with Representative Anchia. Representative Collier.
I don't know what context, so I cannot confirm or deny what you're just.
Well, the exact quote, vote by mail that we know is the greatest source of voter fraud in this state. Do
I'm
you
not
agree with
sure
that?
what the context was.
Well, that's the context, that statement, straight up, it's
Well, give
plain
us
English.
the rest of it. Tell us what else he was talking about.
The sentence, vote by mail that we know is the greatest source of voter fraud in this state. Do you agree with that?
Sir, I would decline to respond.
Representative Thompson?
I think he would be at a better advantage here if he was here to answer that question for you.
Well, 18 years ago, Representative Garnett Coleman, a Democrat, tried to ban pre-printed ballot by mail applications. Do you agree with Representative Coleman that we should ban pre-printed ballot by mail applications? Representative Bernal?
I do not.
Representative Collier?
I'm not aware of that statement.
Do you agree, though, with that position?
I cannot say what he thought or what he did.
Representative Thompson?
I'm not aware of his making that statement.
Congressman, can I clarify the question?
Very quickly, because I'm running out
Are you
of time.
talking about an application or are you talking about a ballot?
Pre-printed mail and ballot.
No. Application, yes. Ballot, no.
Okay. All right. And then with respect to the assertions earlier, I think was placed into the record. The chairman put in a number of videos and statements from Texas constituents. I would ask to insert into the record a document that I outline a number of examples of voter fraud, including statements from Black witnesses who testified in the Texas legislature about voter fraud.
Wait, this is a statement from you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Without objection.
And in that, you have Jerry Wayne Monroe, Aubrey Taylor, Demetria Smith. Demetria's quote was, "Democrats are going after my ancestors. You are making a mockery of my suffrage and use it to your advantage for your own agenda so you can keep your own seat. It's not about the people." Aubrey Taylor, hear me. Elections are being stolen in Harris County. And if something is not done right now, I guarantee you get ready to lose the state. Jerry Wayne Monroe, my community is suffering because there are kingmakers and they cheated in the last election. He testified that he witnessed ballot harvesters take $22,000 in pay. He affirms that ballot harvesters were soliciting nursing homes. He testified that a poll location had spare IDs available for voters if they did not have one. The fact of the matter is there is fraud in elections. The fact of the matter is the legislature is putting forward a good faith effort to try to reform our election laws in the state of Texas. And the fact of the matter is Texas Democrats fled Texas to Washington, where they're asking Washington to step over the interest in the voters of Texas.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Roy. It's great to have you back. I now will recognize Ms.
Well, well, well. Hello, cousin. Talking about the news, making sure people know what's going on out here. So what do you think, Slim?
I still didn't get it. They're talking about fraud when it comes to voting and stuff like that. I don't get it.
Yes, well, basically, whenever we voted, it was illegal. There was a lot of illegal stuff going on. And so they're in hearings now trying to dispute the fact that when we mailed in our ballots, that wasn't legal. And actually Anthony liked us handing in our ballots, but he has a different system in his state. So each state has a different system. And ours, we were violated. We didn't have the same connections that they said that we did. We were supposed to mail them in and seal them. And if you didn't do it right, it didn't count. So you had to like literally check off your voting ballot, then stick it in an envelope and then stick it in another envelope.
What?
Yep. And if you didn't do it that way, then your vote didn't count. So how many people really knew to do that?
No, you know what? My sister-in-law works at the post office, but matter of fact, she did put ours in another envelope, but that's probably because she knew.
Right. The correct way to do it.
I didn't know, but thank goodness she did it for me, but that's crazy.
So a lot of people's votes did not count.
I wonder how many people did it the wrong way. It must have been a lot if they're talking about this in Texas.
A lot, okay? So many that literally the election was rigged. Literally. And this is what people aren't aware of, because they were looking for a savior. You were looking for someone to basically tell them what was going to happen next. Like, oh, turn your vote in. You'll be okay. It'll count, right? Like all our votes count. Oh, it'll count. I like Fox News, but I like NBC too. Do you have those stations? NBC and Fox?
I believe so. I just don't go downstairs and watch TV. I'm always, going to the bloggers and getting news from there because I like to get it quick and to the point.
Definitely. Quick and to the point. Breaking news. They are messing up. They don't got the answer, girl. They swear they got the answer. But they don't got the answer.
Seeing is believing. We all knew that everybody was saying it, everybody was thinking it, but I didn't really think. I was wondering because I was just like, I don't know, something ain't right. Something right about this process, but I didn't think that. The evidence is right here. The proof is in the pudding. It was true what everyone was saying.
It's hard to believe, people you don't know, right? So you don't know nobody from another state. So when you see them talking, irate about something that, you're kind of like not sure about, then it kind of just makes them look more irate rather than like really hearing the message, Messages get messed up sometimes by the way that we send them out. It's like when I wasn't allowed to do that interview anymore, Mr. Unknown made it very clear, didn't he?
Very crystal clear.
There's no more need for the message. You got the answer. Sometimes you got the answer. You don't even know you got the answer. It's right there in your brain. And something ain't right about all this, then something ain't right. Like, yeah, she's splish splashing in the tub. Right. Shout out to Nightbot doing his job up. Gotcha, Stephanie. He gotcha. Wendy is so upset. The second channel of hers that was attacked. She's such a sweet woman. I know, Anthony. I was going to hit you on the Discord last night when I seen it go down, bro. When I seen her channel go down, I was like, oh, fuck. Please forgive me, bro. I know you sent me over there to save her. I can't save everybody, Anthony. Even though I want to. I promise you, brother. I wanted to save her. If I could have, I would have. If there was any time I could have got in there, I would have jumped in, bro. All them demons was on her panel. You already know the enemy's over there. I don't know what I could have done. I still try to replay it in my mind, Anthony. I don't like that because I'm a soldier. So I never leave a soldier behind, Anthony. But in these cases, we're at war. And I told you that was going to happen to her. I told you it was going to happen. So at least you know that I'm doing the best I can to protect you, Anthony. Because at the end of the day, they did exactly what I told you they were going to do. And they took her channel down. They porno bombed her. And now she's in violation. Yeah, I'm sad. I'm sad. There's nothing else I can really say, bro. I do apologize, though. You know, sister, I try to save them, but, you know.
Yeah, I got done like that, you know, and I'm thankful I still got my channel, you know, but I was warned, but I didn't think people were doing that. But when it happens, it's like, it's best to just listen to the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger because
please, they keep shooting me for shot, girl.
Pew, pew, pew. It's a 22.
I'm dodging bullets. I'm dodging fake people. I'm dodging fake narratives, everything.
You're freezing.
No comment. Please hit the like. Boss man said I wasn't allowed to do the interview. I left a message, but somebody actually erased it because they had no good intentions for me. And anything that's not good intentions for me, then I don't participate. I don't play in those reindeer games. You won't make me look like Rudolph, you dumb dummy. Who's the dummy now? Would I need to go somewhere? Come here, do an interview. Come here. Bring my co-host up here. You answer. He can answer the questions. He said, no more questions. Mind your motherfucking business. Because you can ring my bell. Ring my bell. So, back to what I was saying, sister. Back to what I was saying. The link is not for everyone today. The link is only for the villain squad. Unfortunately, you're not a part of that. Dun, 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 dun. You gotta ask Shadow. And his ass is snoring right now. It's like, he's with his family. Smash the like button. There he is. And he got hit by the Nightbot. Oh, he came in hot. Ching, ching, ching. I love you, Game of Death. Don't you worry, brother. You're safe. But no spam in the chat room, man. You know, my Nightbot guy, he gets a little upset. He's got 2 rules. Nightbot got 2 rules. Nightbot got 2 rules. No caps and no emojis. Talk to me without screaming at me, okay? You ain't got to scream to kick it. You ain't got to scream to lick it. So shout out to Nightbot. Shout out to Slim. She's my beautiful co-host, and I am hers. We are we, and nothing. No, nothing can separate us. We're joined at the hip. We're on a mission. We have to fight a war that you don't even know is going on. We're fighting a war for you, and you don't even know it's going on. Wake up. No spamming. No spamming.
Hey.
No whammies. No whammies. He's going to hit you out of there. He's going to time your ass out. Oh, got timed out for 60 seconds. Shing, shing, bing. Yeah, no spam in my chat room, man. Turn your cap lock off, man. Come on, man. Follow the rules, man. You done heard Night Bop. He said, stop spamming. Terminated. You've been terminated. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Follow the rules. America has rules. They're making us do them now. So, sister, I'm a news buff. Breaking news, breaking news. And in my breaking news, I like to look at these weirdos up here in the White House acting like they rolling something. So let's see. This is live, guys. Live from the White House. We're coming in hot.
Can learn in
Let's
person,
go.
which is absolutely remains our objective.
These are the
roadmap has
demons.
3 landmarks and provides strategies and resources to get communities there, including health and safety, vaccinations for Americans 12 and older, and indoor masking, social, emotional, and mental health support for students, and accelerating academic achievement. The president has been clear that it is a top priority to have children in school in person full-time this fall, and he has secured the resources to help ensure we can do that safely. I'll also note that I've invited Secretary Cardona to come join us in the briefing room this week, so we're working to schedule that as well to give you all a briefing and an update. I also wanted to note that with Congress on recess for most of August, we are launching a huge push throughout the month to promote President Biden's Build Back Better agenda and highlight the success of the president's first 6 months in office, especially in delivering economic relief to the American people, creating a record number of jobs for an administration's first 5 months, and spurring on the fastest economic growth during the first half of the year in almost 4 decades. In addition to a regular cadence of White House messaging to support the Build Back Better agenda, key principals, including the Vice President, the First Lady, the Second Gentleman, will fan out to hold events in communities across the country, touting the president's Build Back Better plan to drive more economic growth and invest in America's middle-class families by cutting taxes for families with children, lowering healthcare costs, and meeting the moment on climate change. The president will also promote his agenda throughout the month. They'll be joined in that effort by the Cabinet, which will be stumping in every corner of the country on the importance of passing both the bipartisan infrastructure bill, can we call it the BIB now? I'm going to try, and the Build Back Better agenda to invest in our economy's strength, make life better for all families, and confront the existential challenge of climate change. As part of that, in the first 2 weeks of August alone, 14 cabinet secretaries will travel to at least 26 cities in 13 states and the District of Columbia, with additional events being added. As just one example, Secretaries Walsh and Raimondo will be heading to New York City this Wednesday to highlight the broad support from both labor and business community for the president's economic vision. With that, Jonathan, kick us off.
Thank you. First, one follow-up to the evictions thing, and then moving on to foreign policy. Quickly on this, from the briefing we just received, it seems like the White House does not want to challenge this in court. But the lawmakers, Democratic lawmakers who are unhappy with the response so far, are basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing, don't let Brett Kavanaugh stand in the way of this. Why not take executive action now to direct the CDC and deal with the court later on?
Well, I think what you should have taken from the statement that was put out right before the briefing, and also Jean joining us in the briefing today, is that the president has not given up the option of legal action. He has asked his team to look to kick the tires, just to keep the analogy going, and look at every authority, every option we have to keep
on the analogy.
That is his objective. At the same time, he's also focused on the policy options that are at play, whether it's encouraging states to use funding, to get the funding out, to extend the moratorium by 30 days, 60 days in some states that can keep people in their homes, and to see what other policy options we have at our disposal. So we are using every tool we can He is still, we are still kicking looking at legal authorities to see what is possible, but he's not going to take a step without legal authority to do so.
How much more time is he going to kick the tires?
Well, it's clearly a priority to the president, given the extensive statement we put out this afternoon. He was laser focused on this all weekend. I can confirm for you, and has been from the beginning of the administration. I mean, as a reminder, I know Gene touched on this, but he wanted to see an extension in January in the American Rescue Plan. It obviously wasn't in there. The CDC extended the moratorium not once, but 3 times. We made clear when we did the last extension that would likely be the last extension because of the legal limitations. But he's going to keep pushing to see what the options are available to him and if there are any additional options available.
And then the foreign policy matter. Now the United States, per the Secretary of State's statement yesterday, agrees with Israel and the UK that Iran was behind the attack against the ship. Would the U.S. support an Israeli retaliatory strike on Iran? And how does this matter impact at all the U.S. position in the indirect nuclear talks if they restart?
Well, as a sovereign country, Israel is going to make their own decisions. But I will say that as it relates to our own engagement in nuclear talks, which we, of course, do have authorities over, or do have decisions to make there, our view is that every single challenge and threat we face from Iran would be made more pronounced and dangerous by an unconstrained nuclear program. So put another way, constraining Iran's nuclear program by returning to the JCPOA will put us in a better position to address these other problems. It doesn't mean that it will take care of the other issues that have been ongoing concerns we've had with Iran. They are a bad actor on the global stage. They have threatened our own military, as we all know. But we continue to believe that pursuing a diplomatic path forward, that pursuing an opportunity to make sure we have greater visibility and into what their nuclear capabilities are is in our national interests. Go ahead.
Hey, just quickly, on Friday, the president was asked whether Americans should expect more guidelines coming out because of COVID, because of the Delta variant, and he said, in all probability. So what's on the table?
I'm not, obviously the president is keeping the option open of making sure that that the CDC and our public health officials can make recommendations on what's needed to keep the American people safe. I'm not in a position to preview that or to get ahead of any decisions they may make. What I can reiterate, though, is, and you heard Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins reiterate this weekend, we've been clear we're not going back to the shutdowns of March of 2020. We are not going back to the economy shutting down. We've made too much progress. Too many people are vaccinated. There's been too much progress on the economic front. But again, he has said from the beginning that we are going to be guided by the science, guided by our public health experts, and we're not going to take options off the table of what they may recommend.
And then just on Israel, different topic, the NIH director says he doesn't see a need for booster shots, yet we're seeing this model out of Israel suggesting that boosters are beneficial. So is Israel ahead of the curve on this one?
Well, if you're referring to the Israel data from a couple of weeks ago, is that the data, which was not fully extensive and fully published at the time. I'm not sure if there have been additional details since then. Our health experts continue to look at whether there would be a need for boosters. I would remind you too, we have from the beginning planned for a range of contingencies as we have purchased supply of vaccines, just in case there are boosters needed. There hasn't been a decision made by our public health experts that it is needed even for a portion of the population. If that decision is needed, we will be prepared as a government. Go ahead.
Jen, also following up last week, President Biden was asked about the Justice Department or additional things that can be done for vaccine mandates. And he said that the Justice Department was looking at that. He didn't have an answer yet. Can you elaborate what the Justice Department may be looking at or exploring in terms of mandating vaccines?
Well, I think Karine said this on Thursday or Friday, that a federal mandate from the federal government is not on the table. So I think what the president was referring to is the fact that employers can take that step, just as the federal government, and you've seen agencies do that, has the authority to take that step according to the OLC.
So he's not looking at it the way that the administration did with mask mandates, where it was mandated on federal property that you had to have a mask. There's not a similar exploration of doing vaccines that way to encourage more people to get the vaccine.
Not across the country, no.
Just to be clear, can vaccinated people be indoors with other vaccinated people? I mean, is that okay for people to be doing?
I know Dr. Collins spoke to this during one of his interviews this weekend, and the good news is there is a COVID briefing coming up this afternoon where you can ask questions of our public health experts, but they've not
I'll be there.
changed that guidance in the guidance from last week. They updated guidance on masks, but I certainly would encourage you to ask them that during the briefing. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Back to the eviction. Several states, including New York and Florida, have been slow to disperse available federal aid to landlords and renters. In Florida, some 2% of available funding has been dispersed. So I'm wondering, has the White House been in touch with Governor DeSantis, for instance, and other state leaders to see what the holdup is, and what did those discussions look like?
We certainly, I can't speak to any contact specifically with Governor DeSantis about this, but we have been in touch with state authorities and localities about what the holdup is or what the delay is in getting this funding out. And as Jean conveyed very clearly, 1.5 billion was distributed in June. That was faster. That was greater than the 5 months prior or the 4 months prior. That's a good step. It's not nearly enough. And certainly getting the additional funding out there will help keep more people in their homes, which is our goal, which is Speaker Pelosi's goal. So absolutely, we're in touch with local housing authorities and leaders in states to ensure they're moving this ball forward.
In light of the ACLU's decision to go back to court over Title 42 and push the administration to roll that back, does the president view it as a Trump-era restriction that he just needs more time to unwind? Or after roughly 6 months of using it, does he now view it as a necessary tool to maintain control of the border?
Neither. The president views it as a public health measure where the CDC is going to continue to provide guidance on how long it needs to be in place. We have not given a timeline of when they will lift Title 42, but we will look for them to provide us that guidance. Go ahead.
And about public health at the border, is the president concerned that migrants who are coming in great numbers are not being tested for COVID at their first point of contact with Border Patrol?
Well, let me give you a little bit of an understanding of what actually happens when people come across the border. First, as to Katie's earlier question, there's been no change in Title 42. So families and single adults are expelled, if possible, when apprehended at the southern border. That's step one. Those who can't be expelled are often placed, and this is, I think, goes to your question, in alternatives to detention programs while their cases are being reviewed. CBP provides migrants with PPE from the moment they are taken into custody, and migrants are required to keep masks on at all times, including when they are transferred or in the process of being released. Our other protocol is if anyone exhibits signs of illness in CBP custody, they're referred to local health systems for appropriate testing, diagnosis, isolation, and treatment. That is our process.
Okay, and then just about COVID safety, is President Obama setting the wrong example about how serious COVID-19 is by hosting a big birthday party with hundreds of people this week?
Well, I would certainly refer you to the team who is working for my former boss to give you more specifics of what the protocols are in place. But I would note first that former President Obama has been a huge advocate of individuals getting vaccinated. When CDC has provided guidance on is for indoor settings in high or substantial high zones of COVID cases. This event, according to all the public reporting, is outdoors and in a moderate zone. But in addition, there is testing requirements and other steps they are taking, which I'm sure they can outline for you in more detail.
But is there any concern, just because, as you've said here, and you've had people saying over the last couple of days, vaccinated people can still spread this Delta variant around? So is there concern that this President Obama birthday party might become a super spreader event?
Well, I think, Peter, the guidance is about what steps people can take when they're in public settings. Indoor settings specifically was the new guidance to keep themselves and others safe. In terms of what protocols they are taking, I would refer you to them, and I'm sure they can give you more details.
And just last one. So people who are watching this at home and they see, well, President Obama can have a party with several hundred people. Should they think that it is okay for them to have a party with several hundred people now?
Well, we certainly advise everyone to follow public health guidelines, which I know the former president, who is a huge advocate of getting vaccinated, of following the guidance of public health experts, would certainly advocate for himself as well. Go ahead, Kelly.
Senator Lindsey Graham has announced that he has tested positive for COVID after being vaccinated and will be doing some self-isolating, which could have an impact on, for example, the bipartisan infrastructure. So what is your reaction to that? And secondly, does the administration feel like they need to get more sources of information on breakthrough cases, given the anecdotal experience many people are having of seeing more incidents of that? Beyond just the issue of hospitalizations and deaths, but more information about how much the breakthrough cases are spreading?
Well, let me first say that every single piece of available evidence shows that breakthrough infections are rare and mild. And that is according to a range of data. So according to new research from Kaiser Family Foundation from January to July, the rate of breakthrough cases reported to states is below 1%. We've seen data come out from England, Scotland, Canada, and Israel showing that vaccines are about 80% effective in preventing illness from Delta and about 90% effective in preventing hospitalizations by Delta. CDC is actively tracking tens of thousands of people in cohort studies, as I think you know, and we've talked about a little bit in here, some of them doing weekly PCR testing, which includes healthcare professionals, first responders, hospitalized adults, and people in long-term care facilities. Also, states and hospital associations are reporting their own data. Now, we know there's an interest in getting that data. We support that. Dr. Walensky says that they plan to release that as well, which we, of course, support as well. And it's important for you all to look at. But I would note that, and I thought this was important because if you look at the power of vaccinations, you're looking at specifically the numbers of, according to 7-day averages of January versus July. January is, of course, the lighter numbers. And then the darker number is July. And if you look at hospital admissions and deaths, this is really because of the impact of the vaccine and how effective it is at preventing people from being hospitalized and dying from COVID. We certainly do hope that Senator Graham has a speedy recovery and experiences mild symptoms, and we wish him the best of health through that.
In places like Florida, where hospitalizations are at a record level,
Yeah.
Is there any concern about the number of resources available, rationing of care, additional equipment that needs to be sent in, or personnel to assist?
Well, one, we stand ready and available to provide any assistance that is needed, whether that is Florida or any other part of the country. We've done these strike forces. We are at a very different point in the pandemic than we were a couple of months ago. We have ample vaccine. We have ample experts. We have ample resources to provide them. I will note, as you touched on there, 20% of the cases we're seeing are in Florida. There are steps and precautions that can be taken, including encouraging people to get vaccinated, encouraging people to wear masks, including allowing schools to mandate masks and allowing kids to wear masks, which is not the current state of play in Florida. So, at a certain point, leaders are going to have to choose whether they're going to follow public health guidelines or they're going to follow politics. And we certainly encourage all governors to follow the public health guidelines. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. As you know, the UK and EU are now reopening to vaccinated travelers from the US. Can you give us an update on the decision-making process here in the US about whether and when to reciprocate?
Certainly understand the question. I know there's a lot of people out there who are eager to see loved ones, to travel, to return to flights between our country and many countries in Europe. I don't have an update. There's ongoing discussions on a policy level with public health officials. As you know, we have these ongoing working groups, but I don't have an update on the timeline of a decision.
And then the HHS Inspector General announced today that they are opening an investigation into this large tent camp at Fort Bliss that houses migrant children because of reports that kids were having panic attacks and exhibiting self-harm. I'm wondering, have any changes been made already to address some of those concerns, and how big of a concern has this been for HHS and the White House?
Well, thank you for the question. Secretary Becerra did speak to this last week, and HHS does take every allegation of wrongdoing seriously and swiftly report allegations not only to the Office of the Inspector General, but to the appropriate local authorities. I would say that there have been actions that some of the reports of conditions are several weeks old or even longer than that. And so there have been steps that have been taken to make improvements on the ground, including children at Fort Bliss meet with a case manager on a weekly basis. And we have close to 60 mental health and behavioral counselors on site working with the children. One of the issues that was raised was the lack of mental health access. So that's a step that the HHS team has worked to improve. More than 1,000 staff at the ORR at Fort Bliss have received required training, including child best welfare practices, behavior management, trauma-informed care, cultural competence, and reporting. Training is ongoing as well. And this is certainly an issue we take quite seriously. These reports were made directly to the Office of the Inspector General, and improvements have been made.
Yeah, we're told you have a hard out, so maybe like 2 more.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. A couple of quick questions. One on vaccine misinformation. Since President Biden and the Surgeon General, have spoken about the issue, you've spoken about it as well. Has the White House seen the companies, specifically Facebook and the other social media companies, take any steps to address vaccine misinformation? Any notable changes that you have seen?
It's a really great question. I will have to talk to our team and see if there's any specific notes of improvement that we can call out. I'm happy to do that or connect you with them directly.
So the reason I ask is obviously because we're seeing this increase in vaccinations again, and that seems to be tied to the number of cases going up. But we're just sort of wondering if there is anything that we can tie back to maybe some of the misinformation campaigns being contained.
Well, look, I think that it's hard to draw a connection to one specific step in any local community, but there's no question you see this anecdotally through a lot of your reporting, which is where people see their neighbor got a vaccine, their friends got a vaccine, and they're okay. And on the flip side of it, they had a friend or a neighbor who was hospitalized, and it made them go and get a vaccine. So certainly, it's an ongoing battle against misinformation. It's not just on Facebook, though that is a mechanism for misinformation traveling, no question. It is through a range of mediums. We all have a responsibility, but we are certainly seeing in the states where there are higher case rates, we've seen record rates of, I should say, very encouraging rates of vaccination, and that can be because of a number of factors. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have one more on voting rights quickly.
Sure.
There are 100 state legislators who are converging in DC today from over 20 states. They're going to be meeting with Texas Democrats. We did see the vice president meet with Texas Democrats earlier. I just was curious if the president and the vice president plan to meet with these lawmakers and if they have any message for them.
Well, first, I would say the president and vice president, the message to them is we stand with you and believe that voting rights are a fundamental right for the American people across the country. And the president would love to sign voting rights legislation into law. This will continue to be a fight of his presidency. And that's why he's asked the vice president to lead this effort. Go ahead.
Two quick ones for you. The U.S. has now hit the president's July 4th goal to get 70% of American adults with one shot. What is his reaction to that goal being met a month late?
Well, it was a goal that he set. We set as an administration because we believe in bold, ambitious goals. I would say it's a significant step that we have hit 70% of people in this country, of adults who are vaccinated. That's a good sign. It will help protect communities. It will help protect families and save more lives. But we've said from the beginning, even when we set this goal, our work would not be done, even when we reached it. And so we're forging ahead.
And I want to follow up on something from Friday, which is that was on Friday. Agencies are going to be paying the cost of testing for workers who choose not to get vaccinated. Does that mean taxpayers are going to be paying for the test of federal workers who choose not to get vaccinated?
I'm sure I can check with each agency. It may be different agency to agency, but it's typically would be a part of their funding. But I can check and see if there's more clarification on that front. I know we have to wrap, but Mona, I know you came in and came out. So why don't you end us off here?
Appreciate it, Jen. A couple of things. I want to follow up. I was asking the president on Friday before his departure, why hasn't he, I have an inkling, but for the American people, why hasn't he signed an executive order on the VRA? That's the one thing. And then to follow up on the eviction moratorium for context, there, of course, you probably know there is landlord state, renter state type of situations. And so in the state of Florida, it is a landlord.
Yeah, I want to hear this, because landlords.
Landlords. Some of my research has indicated that renters are having a difficult time in a general sense. And now that they have these tools that they can take advantage of from the government, they are facing more stress and a lack of cooperation from these landlords. I've gotten a lot of that over this past week. I have been following this since a month or so ago, reporting on this weekly. And what I'm hearing more and more is that people are afraid that they're just not going to get the support because of that lack of cooperation. And I know it's been addressed, but what do you think we can do, or the government can do even further to make sure that these states and local municipalities are cooperating?
Well, Mona, I think one thing that's really important is to make sure that communities understand best practices and that they know how to get this funding out. As Jean touched on, there's unfortunately a dispersed system across the country on how to distribute this funding to renters. It's not just, the issues in the housing market or keeping renters in their homes is not a new issue. It's one that has existed for quite some time, as it sounds like you know well. So one of the things we've done is we've hosted these 2 summits with 46 of the cities with most tenants at risk to help jurisdictions set up these new eviction prevention programs. And certainly we want to provide renters with the understanding of what their rights are in this regard, that this funding can go out until 2025, that this funding is something that the federal government has advocated for because we want people to stay in their homes. There's no question there's more work to be done, but the president advocated for this because he wants to make sure more people can stay in their homes. And you were acting about the
ARA, just principally, people want to know if the president can sign an executive order for transgender rights, for example. Why can't he find the same power? Does he have the same power to sign an executive order for the VRA?
Well, the Voting Rights Act. First of all, I would say that in order to make change permanent, you need legislation and you need laws passed. And the president is looking forward to and eager to sign voting rights legislation into law. There have been ongoing discussions, many of you have reported on, and he's going to keep at it. He did sign a voting rights executive order early on in the administration, a historic voting rights executive order, which he wanted to tap into every authority he had from the federal government to protect people's rights, but certainly making laws permanent will protect them longer term. I know we'll have a longer briefing tomorrow. Thanks so much, everyone, for your time.
Damn, she just disappeared out of nowhere. She was like, pew. And that is her story, guys. Well, I appreciate y'all listening today. I hope you guys have a good day. Understand knowledge, understand key, and know the difference, because some people are liars.